A daily record high of 63 locally acquired coronavirus infections in the city. The Trump administration not ruling out further sanctions on top Chinese officials over Hong Kong. And a 3.2% growth in China's economy in the second quarter.
Good evening and welcome. Hong Kong today reported 67 new COVID-19 cases, including 63 locally acquired infections, a new daily record high. More than half of the local cases have unknown sources.
The city's coronavirus tally now stands at 1,586, and the death toll has topped 10 after one more patient succumbed to the disease. More from Kana Chu.
The city's latest wave of coronavirus outbreak took another ugly turn today, with the case count setting a new daily high and the death toll hitting the double-digit threshold.
I cannot say that this is the peak. There's still a chance that more cases are coming.
Contributing to the escalation are two more people emerging from the Good Hope School infection cluster. That's in addition to a pair of Queen Elizabeth Hospital staff members, including a non-emergency ambulance service coordinator. Last seen at his job on Monday, the 46-year-old man had donned a face mask at work without coming into contact with any patients or wards. Joining him is a 56-year-old who was not present in the workplace when 3 cases earlier broke out at the hospital. She is believed to have contracted the virus from her area of residence in Shiwanshan, where epidemiologically linked cases have continued to emerge from Wensha Restaurant, Choi Ho Restaurant, and the Kong Tai Care for the Aged Center. In the neighboring Wong Tai Sin area, some residents of Feng Tak Estate have yet to receive bottles for their deep throat saliva specimen collection. That's despite the public housing estate being what the government considers a high-risk zone prioritized in virus screening efforts. Citing resource limitations, respiratory expert David Hui says citizens can dovetail with authorities' combat against COVID-19 by proactively dropping off specimens at both public and private clinics. Kana Chu, TVB News.
Starting today, some arrivals from high-risk regions such as India will apparently be quarantined for 14 days at a Chunwan hotel. This afternoon, a coach brought the group in question to Silka Chunwan. Authorities say they all tested negative and will not pose any health risks to other hotel guests. It also reiterated its lack of commissioning of a specific hotel for quarantine. Officials also said the practice of isolation at a hotel by eligible individuals is not unheard of. Under capacity-related restrictions, slots at quarantine centers will be first given to close contacts of coronavirus carriers. The government earlier announced it will arrange free COVID-19 tests for 4 high-risk groups of people.
The mother company of one of the test providers was caught in a privacy scandal in the past. As Pinky Wong reports, the provider says all the testing work will be done locally.
The authorities decided to arrange free coronavirus tests for 4 groups of people who were considered high risk in the current wave of the outbreak. They include staff of residential care homes for the elderly, taxi drivers, property management employees, and staff members of restaurants. More than 400,000 people are expected to be tested. One of the 2 test providers hired by the government is Sunrise Diagnostic Center Limited. It was established by a Chinese genome sequencing company, BGI Group. Anthony Wu, former chairman of the Hospital Authority and a board member of the testing laboratory, said the institute is responsible for some 80,000 taxi drivers and staff at elderly care homes. It has already sent teams to care homes for specimen collection.
Major concerns that people have is really privacy. But I can assure you that we are only involved with the testing. The outbound team there, and so she or he go to a table to register with an ID card, and then it was given a barcode, and another barcode is given to a test tube. All we know is the barcode, and we don't know which barcode is whom. So we have absolutely no idea of who is positive and who is negative. Tested locally, tested in Taipo. Everything is done in Hong Kong, collected and done in Hong Kong.
Currently, the laboratory is testing 5,000 specimens a day, with the number of tests to be increased to 30,000 by the end of next week. Wu assured the Chinese-made testing kit is certified by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and the European Union, so people won't have to worry about safety. As for the tests arranged for taxi drivers, the company plans to set up booths around parking lots and petrol stations. Nurses are expected to be deployed to assist the specimen collection. Pinky Wong, TVB News.
Elsewhere, the White House says U.S. President Donald Trump is not ruling out further sanctions on top Chinese officials over their handling of Hong Kong. A spokesman from the U.S. National Security Council denied a Bloomberg report that Trump ruled out additional sanctions for now to avoid escalating tensions. National Security Council spokesman John Alyot said the president has not taken anything off the table with respect to further sanctions on party officials for actions in Hong Kong or on other issues. He said any suggestion otherwise is flat out wrong. On Tuesday, Trump signed the Hong Kong Autonomy Act and issued an executive order. They allow him to impose sanctions and restrictions on Chinese officials and financial institutions involved in implementing the new national security law. A White House source said discussions on potential targets for sanctions are ongoing, including Chief Executive Carrie Lam. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is doubling down on Washington's decision to reject outright virtually all Chinese maritime claims in the South China Sea.
It's not China's maritime empire. If Beijing violates the international law and free nations do nothing, then history shows that the CCP will simply take more territory. Our statement gives significant support to ASEAN leaders who have declared that the South China Sea disputes must be resolved through international law, not might makes right.
The Trump administration also says a ban on popular social video app TikTok, owned by a Chinese internet company, could come in weeks. And there was an announcement on tech giant Huawei.
The State Department will impose visa restrictions on certain employees of Chinese technology companies like Huawei that provide material support to regimes engaging in human rights violations and abuses globally.
The announcement comes after the UK announced it's banning Huawei from taking part in the country's high-speed wireless network. The Foreign Ministry in Beijing said Britain has lost its independence on the Huawei matter, adding the UK government should make responsible decisions in line with its long-term interests. The commercial sector is concerned about the city's business sentiment following the U.S. cancellation of Hong Kong's special status.
With the executive order and the Hong Kong Autonomy Act signed earlier, U.S. President Donald Trump officially put an end to Hong Kong's special status under U.S. law. The former head of the Trade and Industry Department, Raymond Young, agrees that the government should raise a complaint with the World Trade Organization, but believes the impact will be minimal.
World Trade Organization nowadays is a very weak and meek body because the U.S. is actually threatening to withdraw from it, and it has already made the appellate body a useless body by retreating from it.
The Liberal Party's Felix Chung noted some Hong Kong businesses that set up factories on the mainland have already moved their operations to Southeast Asian destinations. While he said others will have to wait and see, he also expressed doubt over the U.S. government's decision.
But I do not understand when you stand with the Hong Kong people. On the other hand, you sanction Hong Kong. I mean, this is a very ridiculous way of treating Hong Kong people. So we shouldn't trust them in this way.
The pro-establishment camp also issued a statement slamming the sanctions. They claim it could affect the operations of some banks and create a chilling effect on certain government officials.
If Hong Kong's democratic process is undermined, or if Hong Kong's peace, prosperity, etc. is undermined, that's totally within the purview of our high level of autonomy. I see no reason at all why the U.S. should get involved,
Former U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton says there is still broad and deep support for Hong Kong freedom in the U.S. and the West. He made the comment 2 weeks after the national security law came into force in the city. In a video call with the Foreign Correspondents Club Hong Kong, Bolton said while the focus is currently on what's going on in the SAR, the developments will have China-wide and worldwide implications.
Spotlight of the press is on Hong Kong now, but I think the protesters and those who want a democracy in Hong Kong and freedom ought to bear in mind that history has the spotlight on them too. And, you know, Winston Churchill said to the British people at their darkest hour, let's so bear ourselves that 1,000 years from now, people will still say this was their finest hour. And I think this can be Hong Kong's finest hour. I think that's what all the people of Hong Kong should bear in mind. It's for them, but it's for the rest of us too. So don't give up.
China became the first major economy to grow since the start of the coronavirus pandemic after lockdowns were lifted and factories and stores reopened. But domestic consumption and investment remain weak, highlighting the need for more government stimulus. The economy grew by 3.2% in the second quarter, following a 6.8% contraction in the first. It was the first quarterly contraction since those records began in 1992. And while the bounce back was the weakest expansion on record, it still beat analysts' forecasts of 2.5% growth.
Still ahead on tonight's news. Top U.S. infectious disease expert calls an attempt by White House advisors to discredit him bizarre. Wartime bomb unearthed at a Kai-Tak construction site. And education centers ask for more government help amid the third wave of coronavirus outbreak. Welcome back to TVB News. Top U.S. infectious disease expert Anthony Fauci is calling an attempt by White House advisors to discredit him bizarre and nonsense. This comes as U.S. COVID-19 cases hit a record daily total of 67,000.
Meanwhile, retail giant Walmart has made it mandatory for customers to wear face masks in its stores. Leslie Tang has more.
Rifts within the White House over handling the COVID-19 pandemic are spilling into public view. Trade advisor Peter Navarro panned top infectious diseases expert Anthony Fauci in an op-ed published in USA Today, saying the doctor has been wrong about everything I have interacted with him on. A White House official also reportedly handed out a list of allegedly false statements made by Fauci early on during the outbreak. Fauci called the criticism bizarre and said the focus should be on tackling the virus.
I cannot figure out in my wildest dreams why they would want to do that. But I mean, I think they realize now that that was not a prudent thing to do because it's only reflecting negatively on them. I can't explain Peter Navarro. He's in a world by himself, so I don't even want to go there. We've got to almost reset this and say, okay, let's stop this nonsense and figure out how can we get our control over this now?
There have long been reports of Fauci disagreeing with U.S. President Donald Trump's push for reopenings, but Trump sought to squash images of discord.
We're all in the same team, including Dr. Fauci. I have a very good relationship with Dr. Fauci, and we're all in the same team. We want to get rid of this mess that China sent us.
Meanwhile, the situation in Florida remains grim, as it now has one of the highest fatality rates in the country. Hospitals are under pressure, with its rolling 7-day average now at 81 deaths per day. Florida hospitals are currently treating more than 8,000 COVID-19 patients. Due to the outbreaks across the country, retail giant Walmart will require all shoppers and staff to wear face masks in its stores across the nation from July 20th. Leslie Tang, TVB News.
India's virus cases surged by almost 33,000 Thursday, taking the nation closer to 1 million and forcing a lockdown in the popular beach state of Goa 2 weeks after it reopened to tourists. The country also reported a record 606 deaths in the past 24 hours, taking total fatalities to 24,915. About a dozen states put high-risk areas under lockdowns, only allowing essential food supplies and health services. Also in Asia, the Japanese capital recorded more than 280 new COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours. It's the highest daily count for Tokyo since the start of the pandemic. A surge of infections across Japan raised the alarm the country may be reopening too quickly. Elite police in the Philippines were activated to enforce a lockdown in part of metropolitan Manila. They were deployed to detain people who violated quarantine regulations. Novatas City is under a 2-week lockdown because of a rise in infections.
Australia's coronavirus hotspot of Victoria State has reported a record daily high of 317 infections. That's prompting officials to reduce non-urgent surgeries and increase hospital beds available for COVID-19 patients. 2 men in their 80s died in Victoria in the last 24 hours, bringing the national death toll to 113. Victoria has been isolated from the rest of the country for more than a week following a fresh outbreak of the disease. Almost 5 million residents in its capital, Melbourne, have been ordered to stay home except for essential business. Prime Minister Scott Morrison also ruled out Australia attempting to eradicate the coronavirus, describing it as a risky strategy that can be very illusory.
Today's Legislative Council meeting was adjourned at around noon because of the lack of a quorum after the Pan Democrats made multiple quorum call requests. But LegCo President reconvened the meeting at 2:30 p.m., which may be extended to tomorrow if necessary. Caleb Leung has more.
This was how today's Legislative Council meeting kicked off at 9 a.m. this morning.
We continue with the Mandatory Provident Fund Scheme Amendment Bill 2019. Mr. Ray Chen, I call for quorum call.
In fact, the Pan Democratic camp requested multiple quorum calls as the meeting progresses.
Mr. Lam Shak-Teng, call for quorum, please.
Mr. Alvin Yeung.
The pro-establishment camp finally said enough is enough.
Pan Democrats have been calling for quorum 4 times. Will I be kicked out if I swear at them? Yes, because it's non-parliamentary. Well then, take it as if I have sworn at them. Please kick me out.
The Pan Democratic camp made another roll call demand at around noon.
The quorum bell has rung for 15 minutes. Since we do not have a quorum in the chamber, I declare the meeting adjourned.
But Andrew Leung reconvened the meeting at around 2:30 p.m. If lawmakers cannot finish their business before the end of today's meeting, it will resume at 8 p.m. tomorrow. They will only have 4 hours of meeting on Friday before the stroke of midnight on Saturday. And that would conclude the last meeting session of this LegCo term. Now let's take a look at what this term of legislature has achieved. Over the past 4 years, lawmakers have held nearly 160 council meetings. That's equivalent to more than 1,700 hours of meeting time. At least 73 bills were passed, including the controversial National Anthem Bill, as well as the co-location bill for the Express Rail Link. The quorum bell has rung for nearly 500 times, totaling more than 80 hours. Meetings were adjourned at least 14 times because of the lack of a quorum. But with a change in the rules of procedure, the LegCo president can reconvene the meeting at any time afterwards. Also worth mentioning is that the LegCo building was severely damaged on July 1st amid the unrest sparked by the extradition bill. It took 3 months to repair the building before it reopened in October. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Kai Tak MTR station is temporarily closed as a bomb was found at a nearby construction site. A bomb suspected to be from the Second World War was discovered at the site located at the junction of Muk Yun Street and Concord Road. Construction workers alerted police around 2 this afternoon. Bomb is 1 meter long and 50 centimeters wide. Around 1,200 construction workers were evacuated.
Tutorial centers are asking the government for help as they face the risk of closures following the suspension of classes. The Education Center Alliance estimates that around 30% of the centers in town have already closed down due to financial strain. It's urging the government to expand its coverage in the next round of anti-epidemic funds. That's after the previous subsidies only included registered tutorial centers but left out some 4,000 playgroups and non-registered education centers. Some owners also claim the rents for their centers have not been reduced for the past 4 months. James, over to you for sports.
Yeah, indeed. And the COVID-19 hasn't stopped the cash registers from ringing at the Hong Kong Jockey Club. It's produced almost record numbers despite social unrest in the city and the coronavirus pandemic. The Jockey Club reporting more than $121 billion in betting turnover during the 2019-2020 season. That is the third highest ever. The total was helped due to overseas wagers. On-site betting was limited due to social distancing rules in the city. The government's cut was more than $12 billion. The first meeting of the new season is set for September 5th in Shatin. The 2020 Tokyo Olympics were scheduled to start this week, but the coronavirus delayed the event until next year. The head of the International Olympic Committee wants to ensure it is not postponed again.
So we are and we remain fully committed to celebrate Tokyo 2020 next year in July and August. So we continue to be guided by the advice of the World Health Organization. And based on this advice and based on the ever-developing situation, we are preparing multiple scenarios with regard to addressing the health situation then next July and August.
Bach ruled out holding the games behind closed doors, but the IOC president did announce the Youth Olympic Games set for 2022 in Dakar will be postponed. The event in the Senegalese capital will be staged in 2026.
That's the news. Thanks for watching.
Good night.